Hello friends, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Keisha and today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in the month of August. And by all the books, I mean the 7 books that I read, because yes, I only read 7 books. I feel like I used to read so many more books, but I really wanted to focus this year on not reading as many graphic novels or middle grade books, not because I don't love them, but because I just wanted to challenge myself to see how many actual full-length novels I could read. And I'm seeing now that when I do that, and also, I've been in a slump at times on and off throughout the past couple of months, I'm just not reading the 13 or 14 books I used to could read in a month. But the good thing is I am still reading pretty good books, so today I'm going to rank the books that I read this month, and we're going to start out talking about the lowest ranked books and then go up to my 5-star reads for the month. The first book I want to start out with is Stargazing by Jen Wang. This is a middle grade graphic novel. It is a contemporary cultural friendship type story about these 2 Chinese American girls who become friends. They are very unlikely friends. One of them is in a more sheltered, strict home, and the other one is in a home where she is just has a little bit more freedom, and she's very much more eccentric than the other friend, and so they form this friendship. So the main character's name is Christine, and she is the one who's more reserved, and then Moon is the one who's a little bit more eccentric, and Moon starts to tell Christine that she has these like visions from celestial beings and that she sees the stars and all this stuff, and they end up forming a friendship and bonding over music videos and painting their nails. And then something happens with Moon that kind of changes things and kind of puts Christine in a situation where she is not sure if she can be the friend that Moon needs her to be. This is a really good story. I did enjoy it, but overall it was just about a 3-star for me. I think it was a good story, just not a great story, but I do think there is merit there if this sounds like something you'd be interested in. The next book I have is another 3-star read, and that one is going to be The Land of Roar by Jenny McLaughlin. This is a middle grade fantasy story, and it was actually my middle grade book club's pick for the month of August. We all read this book, and I think it was probably like split in half between who enjoyed it and who didn't. My middle grade kiddos are getting a little bit older, and it's breaking my heart. We came back and one of them had a mustache. The other one had probably grown another 5 feet. He's already the tallest one. A couple of them's voices had started changing, and it was just crazy to see how much they'd grown. But I do think this is a good story, despite the fact that I rated it 3 stars, and let me tell you a little bit about it and why I think it's a good one. The story is about a sibling duo, Rose and Arthur Trout, and they grew up together playing this game called Roar, and Roar is this imaginary world that they came up with that they used to play together, but now they're getting a little bit older. Arthur is 11 now, and Rose is starting to play with other friends and kind of not play with Arthur anymore. They are having some spats here and there, and then their grandfather is like really trying to get them to play together. And all of a sudden, grandfather gets taken by the villain of Roar, and Arthur and Rose have to go into Roar again to save him. So they find out that this imaginary world is actually a little bit more real than they expected. I really think this is a great book for younger kids, especially if you have like a 6 to 10-year-old that you could read this with, or if they could read it. I think this is a great book for that age group. I think as an adult, I just didn't connect with it as much. And that kind of makes me sad because I'm like, am I losing my connection with my imagination? And I don't want to do that because I love to create. I love imagining things, and I really loved this world. I just think for me as an adult, it wasn't as enjoyable as a read. So I will say though, if you like magic and fantasy, if you like maps, there's this really cool map at the beginning of the story. If you like sibling dynamics, if you like stories with a theme of family, if you like stories with a theme of overcoming your fears and being brave, then I think this could be a winner for you. The next book that I read was House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. This is a YA horror book, and I wanted to pick it up because I have read some YA horror that I enjoyed. I don't read a lot of YA anymore, but I have begun to dabble in the horror genre and really end up liking a lot of what I read. So this story follows 3 sisters who disappeared all these years ago, and now they have returned. And they came back different. When they came back, their hair was white, their eyes were black, and they just looked a little bit creepier than before. Now one of the sisters has turned up missing again, and it's up to the other 2 sisters to find out where she went. and they kind of start exploring what really happened to them all these years ago and what is happening with them now. This is a horror story, so you can expect some gore. If you can't tell that already from the front cover, I don't know what to tell you, because it's very obvious that this is going to have some gore. It does have some really interesting elements, and I really did enjoy Crystal Sutherland's writing. It's very fast-paced and very flowy and well-written. My only qualm with the story was I just really wasn't a fan of where it went. I have read other stories similar to this, and I think this is a trope that used to be really popular a few years ago. And I just know that this has been done a lot as far as not the actual story, but just like what was going on. And I'm just not the hugest fan of that. And if you want to know what that is, you can private message me or message me over on my Instagram and ask me if you're just genuinely that curious. It will be a spoiler, but that's really why I didn't enjoy the book, I think. So unfortunately, this was only about a 3.5 star for me. I think I ended up rating it 3 on Goodreads, but maybe a 3.5, not super memorable, but I am glad that I did give it a chance and read it. The next book that I read was Shadow School Archimancy by J.A. White. This is a spooky middle grade book series that I was very excited to get to because J.A. White actually wrote Night Books, which I read a couple years back and really enjoyed. This story follows our main character Cordelia, and she is going to a new school in a new town, and she's not in the best of spirits because she is obviously a new kid in school, having to make new friends, and she misses her friends back home. But when she goes to Shadow School, she ends up not only finding friends, but also finding some ghosts. So now it's up to her to figure out why these ghosts seem to be trapped at Shadow School and what she can do to help. I think this is a great story if you like spooky middle grade books, if you like adventurous stories. It wasn't the scariest book that I've ever read. It wasn't super spooky, but I did think it was really creepy and a good story. It read more like dark academia with some paranormal aspects, so if that sounds up your alley, I would recommend it. I gave this one 4 stars, and I have gone ahead and picked up the second book in the series, so I probably will continue it. I don't think it'll be as big of a winner for me as things like Small Spaces or the City of Ghosts series or anything like that, but I did enjoy it, so I'm looking forward to continuing on. Next up, I read Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. This was a much anticipated book that was releasing this past month. I happened to get my hands on an art copy, and I did happen to read it before it came out, and I was very excited to have the opportunity to do so. This is a murder mystery story that draws a lot from Agatha Christie and other murder mysteries like it, but kind of has a little bit more of a modern take on it. In this story, we follow Daisy Darker as she and her family are going to her grandmother's estate for her 90th birthday. But upon arrival, the weird thing about this island is that there is a tide that comes in that cuts off civilization from the island whenever the tide comes in, and then the tide goes down, and then you can leave. So at this party, the tide comes in, and after the tide has come in, someone has been murdered. And throughout the night, multiple other people are murdered while the rest of the family is trying to figure out who done it. I found this story really interesting. I love the way that Alice Feeney writes. I wouldn't say that she's a favorite author of mine, but I have read quite a few of her books, and there's something that just keeps bringing me back to her, and I really do think it's because she just knows how to write a good story. Her writing is so flowy and poetic, so if you're looking for a book with good writing, this is definitely a good one. I did end up rating this book 4 stars. I thought it was really good, and like I said, I love the writing. I loved that there were elements in the story. I don't really want to spoil the elements, but there are just elements, if you've read it, that I really, really liked in the story, and that was really what made me rate it 4 stars. What made me bump it down from a 5 star is that I felt like it was a little bit predictable. I could kind of see things coming. There were a couple of different twists. One of them I saw coming, the other one I did not, but it wasn't like a jaw-dropping twist for me. But it was one that it didn't catch on to, so that was really good. But overall, I did enjoy my time reading this book, so I couldn't help but rate it 4 stars. Okay, these last 2 books are going to be extremely hard for me to not gush about because they are both 5-star reads. And I had a time trying to figure out which one I was going to put in the #1 spot for the month, and let me just tell you that they are like neck and neck. So don't take this too seriously because it was a really hard decision for me to make. The first book that was 5 stars for me and was such a surprise was The Mother-in-Law by Sally Hepworth. I read The Good Sister by this author earlier this year and also gave it 5 stars, and I absolutely fell in love with her writing and her storytelling. And I decided to pick this book up with my friend Elizabeth and Lauren, and we buddy read this one. And one of us DNF'd it, the other one gave it 3.5 stars, and I am the unpopular opinion who gave it 5. So I don't know what this means for my reading taste or anything else, But I will say that Sally Hepworth's books are typically pitched as thrillers, and I would not pitch this as a thriller. I get that there are thriller elements, I get that there's mystery elements, but I would pitch this book more as a family drama or women's fiction or something of that sort. But let me just go ahead and tell you what the story is about. So this follows our main character, Lucy, and Lucy has just married her husband, Ollie, who also has a sister, who has a husband, and then obviously he has a mom and a dad, and the mother-in-law is like the other main character of this story. So he marries into this family, and you kind of get a little bit of perspective from all of them, or at least like you can see a little bit from each of the characters, but this does follow a dual perspective. So you have Lucy's perspective, and then you have the mother-in-law, Diana's perspective, and it also jumps in timeline some. So it has two of my favorite things, and I really enjoyed this story. It is about, like I said, Lucy and her mother-in-law, and it's their relationship, but also the relationship of the family and just the drama that ensues, some of the secrets that they hide, and different things like that. This is not a story that if it was pitched to me like that, I wouldn't have wanted to pick it up. And I never would have picked up The Good Sister either if Elizabeth wouldn't have told me it was one of her favorite books. So I feel like this is hard to pitch for people who don't typically gravitate towards family dramas. But I really like this book. There's just something about Sally Hepworth's writing and what she does that just makes you invested in these characters. And are these characters in the story the most likable? No, but I really felt for them. And there is one character in this book that I don't want to say you're not meant to like, because I don't think that this book is supposed to turn you against the mother-in-law, but I really empathized or sympathized, I guess, for the mother-in-law in places where I feel like other people can't. And I just feel like I see what Sally Hepworth was trying to do, because I just had a place in my heart for her and her story. And is she a little bit unlovable? Yes. And is she, or not unlovable, but like hard to love? Yes. And is she a little bit strict? Yes. But I feel like I could see where she was coming from. And I loved her and Lucy's relationship, even though it was a little bit rocky. And I just loved a lot of different things about this story. There was like a twist at the end, because I feel like the story does lead you in one direction and then kind of flips the tables a little bit. It wasn't super surprising for me, but I don't know, like there was just something about this book. I always wanted to pick it back up. I thought it was a really good story, and I felt like there was just so much merit there, and I felt like there was so much there that just moved me emotionally. Did it make me cry? No, but I just felt so strongly. Like I remember talking to Elizabeth about this book, because she rated it lower than I did, and she was like, I really want to know why you felt certain ways about certain characters and why you felt the way you felt. And I was just like so passionate about these characters, and I do not like character-driven books. I don't know that this is classified as a character-driven book, but I feel like it's more character-driven than plot-driven, and that is not me. I do not like books like that. But here we are, again, me wondering what the heck even is my reading taste, because this was so good, and I was so invested in the characters. So, I don't know, if you need to be swayed to like this book, I'll be the one to convince you. And then the last book that I read this month, that was another surprise. That was one that all of my friends raved about and loved, and one that I have avoided ever since I saw the cover, ever since I saw the title, because I was like, I have no business reading books like this. It's probably my favorite book that I read this month. And that is My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. Y'all, I did not want to pick this book up for the longest time, but I was really convinced by Liv, Lauren, and Elizabeth to pick this one up. This is one of their favorite books, and I have read Grady Hendrix before. I've read 2 of his books previously, and I did enjoy them. They were 3 and 4 star reads for me, and now this one is my first 5-star Grady Hendrix book. Oh my word, I don't even know where to start with this. It's a friendship story. So it is a horror story, but it is so much more than that. It is a friendship story about Abby and Gretchen. They have been best friends since the 4th grade. I love seeing like how their friendship formed. I was sold from the get-go with these girls. I fell in love with both of them. And then you get like a little bit later in life and something happens where Gretchen gets possessed. And so now, like, obviously they're going through this process of what is wrong with her and all this other stuff. Like, I don't want to go into too much detail because I feel like you should just go into this a little bit blind. If you like 80s vibes, or if you're taking part in the Upside Down Readathon and need another book to add, please pick this up. This is such a good story. It is horror, so there is some gore. Definitely look up some trigger warnings for different things if you need to do that. But I was so surprised at how much I love this book. I listened to the audiobook along with it, and I really enjoyed that as well. And there were just things that I really took from the story. And if you missed my vlog on this, I will go ahead and link it down below. But I cried at the end of this book, and I had feelings, and it was more, I guess, because I was able to attach emotionally to this because of just personal things in my life. But I don't know, it was just such a good story. It was a pleasant surprise. I'm so glad that I read it, and now here it is, a favorite book that I read this month. All right, y'all, that is all of the books that I read in the month of August. Let me know down in the comments below if you have read any of these books and what your thoughts were. And I would also love to know what your favorite book that you read in the month of August was. If you made it this far in the video and you don't have a specific comment to leave but would like to leave something, go ahead and leave the balloon emoji because there are balloons on the front of this cover. And thank you guys so much for watching. I love you all so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, friends.